The applause was already rolling across the field when my knees started to give out. At first, I thought I could push through it. Just smile, just keep walking, just make it to the stage, take the degree, and sit back down before anyone noticed how badly my hands were shaking. The dean was calling names. Families were cheering from the bleachers, and all around me, people were having the kind of graduation day I had pictured for years. Then the lights blurred. The stairs ahead of me bent sideways. A girl beside me grabbed my elbow and whispered, "You okay?" I tried to nod, but the ground rushed up before I could answer. The last thing I heard was a burst of gasps and someone shouting for medical staff. When I opened my eyes again, everything smelled like antiseptic and cold sheets. A nurse was adjusting the blanket over my legs. "Easy," she said softly. "You gave everyone quite a scare." My name is Nina Calloway. I was 29 years old that day, and I had just collapsed at my own nursing school graduation after years of working, studying, and pretending exhaustion was something I could outstubborn forever. I turned my head and saw my phone on the tray table beside me. Did my family come? My voice sounded thin, scraped raw. The nurse hesitated. That pause told me more than her face did. "We called your emergency contact," she said carefully. "Your father answered." Something in me straightened, just for a second. What did he say? She looked down at the chart in her hands like she wished the paper could answer for her. Then she said it. "He told us. Let her deal with it herself." I stared at her, not because I hadn't heard the words, because I had. And somehow, they still felt impossible. My hand shook when I reached for my phone, and what I saw there hurt even worse than the fall. My brother had tagged me in a backyard photo with my parents smiling beside the grill. Perfect family day. If that was their perfect family day, then what exactly had I been to them all along? And as always, this story on Revenge Pulse is a work of fiction, created for storytelling and reflection. That wasn't the first time my father had decided I could carry more, just because I usually did. In our house, Tyler was always the one people made room for. I was the one expected to make the room. If he forgot something, somebody rushed to fix it. If I was overwhelmed, that was treated like proof I should handle it better. My father had a whole collection of lines for moments like that. "You deal with things better. Your brother's not ready. Families lean on the strong one." He said them so often they stopped sounding like opinions and started sounding like rules. My mother never came at me the way he did. She was softer. That was what made it harder to explain. She would lower her voice, touch my arm, and say, "You know how your father gets," or "This will keep the peace." Then she would still take his side. She never had to raise her voice. She only had to stand in the right place when it mattered. So I helped. Not endlessly, not dramatically, just enough times to become useful in all the wrong ways. I picked up my mother's medication when she said money was tight. I covered a utility bill one month when my father's hours were cut. I sent Tyler cash to fix his car because he swore he'd lose his job without it. Every time, I told myself it was temporary. Every time, temporary came back wearing a different shirt. Jessa saw through it before I did. One night after a shift, while I was still in scrubs and trying to study with coffee gone cold beside me, she looked at me and said, "You're living like their whole house is strapped to your back." I laughed then, quietly, because part of me already knew she was right. And while I was still lying in that hospital bed, Tyler finally texted me, not to ask if I was okay. Just this: "Don't make this week harder than it already is." I was discharged the next afternoon with a paper bracelet still around my wrist and instructions to rest that already felt unrealistic. My apartment was small, quiet, and too warm from the afternoon sun. The kind of place that usually felt safe after a long shift. That day, it felt thin, like the walls had stepped back and left me alone with a truth I had been dodging for years. I set my bag down by the couch, kicked off my shoes, and sat carefully, still moving like my body no longer fully trusted me. Then I opened the photo again. My father stood beside the grill in the backyard, one hand on the metal lid like he owned the whole day. My mother was smiling at something just outside the frame. Tyler was holding up a can and looking straight into the camera with that easy expression people wear when they think nothing is wrong. Under it, the caption sat there like it had every right to exist. Perfect family day. I checked the timestamp. It lined up so closely with my hours in the emergency room that I had to look twice. That was the part that hurt the most. Not that they missed my graduation. Not even that my father told the hospital to let me deal with it myself. It was that while I was hooked up to monitors, trying to stop the room from spinning, they were laughing over a grill like I had never belonged in that picture to begin with. Jessa knocked once and came in holding a paper bag that smelled like soup and bread. She took one look at my face, then at my phone. "Nina," she said quietly. This wasn't forgetfulness. I didn't answer. They made a choice. I tried one last time anyway. Maybe Dad was angry. Maybe nobody understood how bad it was. Maybe my phone started buzzing. Once, then again, then over and over, so fast it sounded like panic. I silenced it and set it face down on the table. A minute later, I picked it up again. The screen showed a number I had never seen from my family before. 54 missed calls. The calls kept coming until the sound itself started to feel hostile. Then the messages followed, one after another, piling up so fast I barely had time to read them before another slid in above it. "Call us now. This is urgent. You need to fix something. Don't overreact." I stared at the screen and felt something inside me go colder with each line. Not one message asked if I was home. Not one asked if I was still dizzy. Not one asked if I had anyone with me. They had managed to call 54 times without once sounding like family. I didn't call my father back. I hit play on the voicemail my mother had left instead. Her voice came in tight and breathless. "Nina, honey, call us as soon as you hear this. Tyler's in a bad situation, and we need to sort something out right away." Then I heard movement, muffled voices, and my father cutting in from somewhere near the phone. "Tell her to stop ignoring us and pick up." There it was. The old pattern, back on its feet already. I get hurt. They disappear. They need something. I become reachable again. Tyler texted next. "Why are you making this harder?" Then another. "I just need you to verify one thing." I looked up. Verify. Jessa was leaning against the kitchen counter with her arms folded. "That doesn't sound like they're asking for money." No, it didn't. A minute later, an email came through from my mother with 3 blurry photo attachments. I opened the first one and saw a bank logo at the top. The second had numbers, typed lines, and my full name in the middle of the page. By the time I reached the last image, my pulse was pounding again. At the bottom of the document was a signature that looked exactly like mine, Nina Calloway. Only I had never signed that form at all. I put the call on speaker because I didn't trust my hands not to shake. My mother answered first, too fast, like she'd been staring at the screen. "Nina." Finally. Then my father's voice came in behind hers, hard, impatient, familiar. "We need to clear this up now." Tyler didn't even bother with hello. The bank flagged the file. "They're holding everything because they need confirmation." "What file?" I asked, even though I already knew. There was a beat. Then my father said it like he was explaining something small to someone difficult. "Tyler's business loan. The detailing company. It's a good opportunity. And his credit needed a little support. A little support." I looked at the photos again on my phone. My name, My information, my signature sitting where it had no right to be. You used my documents. It's paperwork, my father snapped. Don't turn this into drama. My mother rushed in before I could answer. Your father was only trying to help your brother build something real. Tyler exhaled hard into the phone. I already put money down, the van, the equipment, the booking software. I'm supposed to launch next week. That was when the rest of it landed. They hadn't just borrowed my name for safety. They had built a whole plan on top of it. How did you get my signature? I asked. My father answered too quickly. From old forms. You signed enough things over the years. Apartment papers, student forms, anything they had copied and saved because no one in that house had ever thought my boundaries applied to them. So when I collapsed, I said, you wouldn't come. But when you need my name, suddenly I matter silence. Then my father stepped right around the question. Just call the bank and verify it. Like I was still supposed to fall back into line. Jessa reached over, pulled her laptop closer, and looked me dead in the eye. No, she said. Before you say one more word to them, we're calling someone who knows exactly what this is. Jessa got Ethan Mercer on a video call that same night. He looked exactly like the kind of man who did not waste words for anyone. Gray at the temples, glasses low on his nose, calm in a way that made panic feel almost embarrassing. Jessa gave him the short version. I sent everything else, photos of the loan file, screenshots of the messages, my mother's email, the call log with all 54 missed calls stacked on top of each other like a warning I should have understood sooner. Ethan read in silence for a full minute. Then he looked up and said, This is not a misunderstanding. No softness. No family-friendly phrasing. Just that. My chest loosened a little. He tapped one of the files on his screen. This is not paperwork families casually help each other with. This is unauthorized use of identity. I sat very still. He explained it plainly. The bank had likely paused the loan at the final verification step because something in the file didn't sit right. If I refused to confirm it, the application could be pushed into fraud review. And no, I did not owe anyone a rescue just because the people who used my name shared my last name. That was the first moment the whole thing stopped sounding like my fault. Ethan glanced at another note. One question. Did your father really tell the hospital to let you deal with it yourself? I nodded. His face didn't change. Then he already defined the standard. You're just applying it. The sentence landed so cleanly, it almost made me laugh. For days, everything in me had been tied in one knot: guilt, anger, family, obligation, fear. He cut through all of it in 12 words. This was no longer about whether I was willing to save my brother's business. It was about whether I had the right to protect myself from my own family. Ethan closed the file. Do not call the bank tonight. Let them sit in their own panic for once. The next morning, my phone rang before 8. When I saw my father's name, I knew something had changed. He wasn't calling to order me around anymore. My father called again the next morning, and I knew before I answered that he had lost something overnight. Not control. Not yet, but certainty. His voice was lower than usual, tighter around the edges. Still trying to sound firm. Still trying to sound like the man in charge. But the cold ease was gone. The bank wants direct confirmation now, he said. They're saying if this isn't cleared up immediately, the file could be sent for fraud review. There it was. Not fear exactly, but the shape of it, in the background. Tyler was already talking too loud. Too fast. I could hear the panic in the way he kept repeating the same points, like they might become less true if he said them enough. The deposit on the equipment was already down. The launch date was next week. The van had been lined up. Bookings were supposed to open. If this fell apart, he wasn't just losing time. He was losing money, momentum, the version of himself he'd already bragged about becoming. Then my mother came on. "Your brother will fall apart over this," she said. "Nina, please, you can't do this to your family." I didn't answer that. I asked the only thing that mattered. When the hospital called, why did Dad say that silence? Not confusion, not shock. Silence. The kind that only happens when everyone knows exactly what was said and none of them wants to touch it. Tyler broke first. "Can't you do one thing for this family without making it about yourself?" That was it. That was the cleanest truth I had heard from any of them. Not sister, not daughter, not someone they loved. Just the backup system they expected to come online whenever their real plan failed. I sat up straighter and spoke before anyone else could. When I was on that stage, Dad said to let me deal with it myself. I let the silence sit one beat longer. I'm doing that now. After that call, I stopped speaking to my family directly. Ethan sent a short notice that same afternoon. Clean, formal, no extra heat. It said I had not signed the loan documents. I had not authorized anyone to use my identity, and all further communication about the matter had to go through him. That was all. 3 facts, 3 locked doors. My father called twice after that and didn't leave a message. Then my mother tried a different route. "Nina," she said when I finally picked up, her voice soft in that careful way I had spent years mistaking for kindness. "Your father is too proud. He gets hard when he's scared. I just don't want this going any farther." For once, I heard what she was really saying. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "We were wrong." Just help us stop the consequences before they fully arrive. "I'm not fixing this for you," I said. She went quiet, then sighed like I had disappointed her instead of the other way around. By evening, the cracks were spreading inside their own house. Tyler started blaming my father for everything. I knew because he sent 3 furious texts in a row, then deleted 2 of them before I could screenshot them. The one that stayed said enough. "You should have handled it better." A minute later, "You never should have said that to the hospital." That was the part that almost made me laugh. Not because anything was funny, because suddenly even Tyler understood what my father still refused to say out loud. This wasn't falling apart because I was cruel. It was falling apart because they had counted on me staying easy to use. The bank froze the process. Tyler's launch stalled. Money he'd already put down was now hanging in the air with nowhere solid to land. Jessa came over with boxes that night to help me pack for the move closer to my new job. Halfway through a stack of textbooks, I found the envelope I had mailed weeks earlier, 3 graduation tickets inside. Still sealed. They had never even opened it. The loan did not go through the way my family had planned. It didn't collapse in one loud, dramatic second. It slowed, locked, and stayed there under review, which somehow felt even more fitting. No clean rescue, no quick workaround, just a long, hard stop sitting exactly where they had expected me to smooth things over. Tyler lost the business before it had the chance to become real. The launch date passed. The van never showed up in his driveway. The equipment deposit was tied up in the mess, and every angry message he sent after that sounded smaller than the one before. For once, failure stayed where he had made it. My father changed too, though not in any noble way. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He just stopped sounding like a man who believed the room would always turn his way if he talked long enough. That certainty was gone. My mother was left in the middle of the silence she had helped build for years, still trying to soften things that had already hardened into consequence. As for me, I cut the last loose threads. The utility login I had once covered, gone. The shared phone account, gone. The little emergency transfers that were never emergencies. Only habits dressed up as crisis. Gone too. Ethan told me once, in the same flat voice he used for everything. You did the correct thing. Correct doesn't become cruel just because family dislikes the outcome. Jessa helped me hang my diploma in the studio near my new job. No party, no speeches, just the frame, the wall, and the strange quiet that followed. It was the first room I had ever sat in without waiting for someone to pull me back into their chaos. The next day, an envelope from the school arrived. Inside was a photo of me taking my diploma, and on the back, in my father's handwriting, was a short line I hadn't expected. I turned the photo over before I let myself really look at it. On the back, in my father's handwriting, was one short sentence. You still made it farther than any of us. That was all. Not, I'm sorry, not come home. Not the kind of late apology people use to make themselves feel softer in their own memory. Just one awkward line, written by a man who had finally run out of ways to pretend he hadn't thrown something away. Then I looked at the picture. I was standing there in my gown, pale and tired, but upright. No family beside me, no arms around my shoulders, no smiling parents claiming a moment they had not helped me reach. Off in the background, blurred by distance, were the people who had actually carried me through that day, the ones who stayed, the ones who showed up, the ones who did not need my pain to become convenient before they cared. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I set the photo beside my diploma in the studio and stood there for a minute, letting the quiet do what it had finally learned to do for me. Hold, not threaten. Later, Jessa came by with pizza, and we sat on the floor between half-open boxes while the evening light stretched across the wall. It touched the frame first, then the photo, then the space around them, softening everything without changing what it was. That was when I understood what my graduation day had become. It was the day my family left me behind, and it was the day I stopped chasing a love that only existed when I was useful. Some people call you family only when they need your sacrifice. Walking away from that isn't cruelty. It's how you keep the part of your life that was always supposed to be yours. If you've ever been the child expected to understand more than was fair, this story was for you. I hung the diploma on the wall. The picture I kept for myself.